Hello and welcome to After the Headlines. I'm Sarza, joining you today from Cairo. And Cairo is not a random place to have this conversation today. For centuries, Cairo has been one of the intellectual centers of the Muslim world, home to Al Azhar publishing houses, scholars, students, and debates that shaped Islamic thought far beyond Egypt. So today I want to ask a question that many Muslim societies are grappling with. After institutions, who speaks for Islam? For a long time, religious authority in Muslim societies was relatively structured. There were institutions, there were scholars who recognized training. There were chains of learning, debate, and accountability. Authority was not uncontested, but it was anchored. In places like Egypt, Al-Azhar played that anchoring role. In South Asia, madrasas, scholars, and legal traditions did something similar. But that landscape has changed dramatically. Today, religious authority is no longer held primarily by institutions. It is fragmented, mobile, and often algorithmic. A YouTube channel can reach more people than a seminary. A viral clip can outweigh decades of scholarship. A confident tone can be mistaken for knowledge. This doesn't mean institution disappeared. It means that its monopoly on authority did. So what filled the gap? Three main things. First, digital platforms. They flattened access to religious speech. Anyone can speak, interpret, or teach, often without peer review or accountability. Second, political utility. Religion is increasingly mobilized not as scholarship but as identity, something to rally, discipline, or signal belonging. And third, public distrust of institutions. When people lose trust in political, legal, or religious institutions, they don't stop seeking knowledge, they just seek it elsewhere. This is not unique to Egypt or Bangladesh or the Middle East. It's a global pattern. What's interesting and often misunderstood is that this shift is not simply about radicalization or ignorance. It's about where legitimacy comes from. In institutional Islam, legitimacy came from training method and continuity. In today's environment, legitimacy often comes from visibility, emotion, and certainty. People gravitate towards voices that sound confident, relatable, and decisive, especially in moments of social or economic stress. That doesn't make audiences irrational, it makes them human. But fragmentation has consequences. When authority is dispersed without shared standards, disagreement turns personal. Debate becomes accusation. Difference becomes threat. And religious language starts doing political work it was never meant to do. This is where we see tension, not between Islam and modernity, but between Islam as an ethical tradition and Islam as a tool of mobilization. Cairo helps us see this clearly. Al-Azhar still exists. Scholars still debate. Texts are still taught, but they now compete with timelines, clips, and comment sections. The question is no longer who is right, it is who is trusted and why. For listeners in Bangladesh and broader South Asia, this question is especially relevant. Bangladesh is often described as Muslim majority but secular, yet debates about morality, culture, and politics increasingly use religious language. And when institutional trust weakens, whether in politics, media, or education, religious authority fills the vacuum. Not always intentionally, but predictably. So what does this mean going forward? It means we need to stop pretending that authority will return to old forms on its own. Institutions will not regain trust simply by insisting they're legitimate. Trust is rebuilt through transparency, ethical consistency, openness to critique, and humility to power. And for audiences, it means cultivating a different skill, discernment. Not asking only who speaks, but how they reason and what assumptions they make and who benefits from their certainty. So here's some closing thought. The crisis of religious authority is not a crisis of faith. It is a crisis of institutional credibility. And until that gap is addressed thoughtfully, ethically, and patiently, the question of who speaks for Islam will remain unsettled. Thank you for listening to After the Headlines. I'm Sarza, and if this episode helped you think differently about authority, institutions, and belief, feel free to share, follow, or engage. Until next time.